Hello YouTube, my name is Nero and today we have some Call of Duty Modern Warfare Remastered and I am here to ask and answer one simple question, borrowing the intro from Total Biscuit there. What is the best sniper rifle here in Modern Warfare Remastered? Now this may actually come down to personal preference, but ultimately some sniper rifles will perform better in different situations as compared to other sniper rifles. Some snipers are really bad, other ones are really good in a lot of situations, and we are going to cover all these sniper rifles here in Modern Warfare Remastered and try to determine which one is the best. Let's start things off here with the old fan favorite, the M4A3. Unfortunately, the M4A3 is actually pretty weak. Now, I know that sounds weird, considering this is pretty much the go-to sniper rifle for most people, myself included, but stat-wise, this sniper is pretty weak. And in fact, without stopping power, you cannot get a one-shot kill on somebody unless you hit them in the neck or the head. Now, the other day, I made a video, and that video was discussing Juggernaut and how it interacts with other perks in the game, and to summarize that, stopping power and Juggernaut cancel each other out. So if you're using the M4A3 and you're using stopping power and you shoot at somebody who's using Juggernaut, those two perks are going to cancel each other out, and it will be as if you don't have stopping power, it will be as if they don't have Juggernaut. And remember what I said earlier, the M4A3 cannot one-shot somebody without stopping power, so yeah, the M4A3, even with stopping power, cannot kill a Juggernaut unless you hit them in the neck or in the head. This is why Juggernaut is pretty much the bane of the M4A3, and a lot of other snipers in this game can actually deal with Juggernaut much more effectively. Of course, not everybody in the game uses Juggernaut, so if you're using stopping power on the M4A3, you can one-shot non-Juggernaut users to the stomach, chest, neck, and head. And just as a caveat going forward, there are no sniper rifles in this game that can one-shot somebody in the leg or in the arm by traditional means. So if you're shooting at somebody's arm, it's always going to be a hit marker, right? Until you reach the shoulder. If you reach the shoulder, that's considered to be the upper chest. So basically the bicep, the elbow, the forearm, the hands, you cannot one-shot somebody there. And anything below the waist, you typically can't one-shot unless, of course, you're using the ACOG scope on the M4A3. So of course I have to cover this. The ACOG in this game has a very weird quirk, specifically on the M4A3. So when you're using ACOG, your damage is increased. And because of that, you can one-shot non-Juggernaut users anywhere in the body if you're using the M4A3 ACOG. As you guys can see here in this gameplay, I'm shooting my friends in a private match. I am literally shooting them in the toe, and it one-shots them. It's ridiculous. It's absolutely insane. But the kicker here, guys, is even with this increased damage, you cannot one-shot a Juggernaut anywhere besides the neck and the head, even if you're using ACOG and stopping power on the M4A3. Next up, let's cover the R700, and fun fact, before we go any further, the M4A3 is basically just a modified version of the R700. Every M40 in real life is actually built from a Remington 700 and then modified a bunch, but don't let that real life tidbit fool you, because the R700 performs much differently than the M4A3 here in Modern Warfare Remastered. So for starters, the R700 has higher damage multipliers for the chest, which means you can actually one-shot people in the chest even if you aren't using stopping power. If you remember how stopping power and Juggernaut interact in this game, this means that the R700 with stopping power can actually one-shot somebody who's using Juggernaut if you hit them in the upper chest, the neck, as well as the head. This extra power is not without its downsides, however, because the R700's a pretty clunky sniper rifle to compensate for this extra power. So it only has 4 rounds in its mag by default, whereas the M4A3 actually has 5. The R700 has 50% more idle sway than the rest of the snipers in this game, and has more recoil than the M4A3, which makes getting that second shot off a little bit more difficult. But like the M4A3, its damage is relatively decent. You can actually, with stopping power, one-shot anyone who's not using Juggernaut in the stomach, the chest, the head, and the neck, and once again, not in the hands, not in the limbs, or anything like that. And keep in mind that ACOG quirk with the M4A3 is exclusive to the M4A3. You won't get any bonus damage on the R700 if you decide to put the ACOG attachment on. Next up, let's cover the Barrett 50 cal, and kind of a fun fact, I suppose, for these snipers here in Modern Warfare Remastered. All of them do the same damage. By default, they all do 70 damage, from the M21 all the way up to the Barrett 50 cal, but the difference is the damage multipliers, and the damage multipliers on the Barrett 50 cal are actually very similar to that of the R700, so you can actually one-shot people in the upper chest, neck, and the head with the 50 cal, even if you aren't using stopping power. but the 50 cal is also semi-automatic, and it also has the highest wall penetration of any weapon in the game. This causes the Barrett to be an incredibly powerful sniper for very obvious reasons, and even with its countermeasures, which are basically just high recoil, it is still in the running to be one of the best snipers in this game. It does have the same stomach damage multipliers as the M40 and the R700, and just overall, there aren't really a ton of downsides to the Barrett 50 cal. It does have pretty high recoil, I will say that, but it's pretty easy to get that second shot off because it is semi-automatic. The reload time is pretty long considering you have to reload all of your rounds at once rather than one individually like the R700 and the M40A3, but still, this thing is ridiculously powerful, but we're going to be talking about that later on here because we have two more sniper rifles to cover here in this video. Next up, let's cover the Dragunov. So the Russian Dragunov is a semi-automatic sniper that has a few odd quirks to it. To start, the Dragunov has the same chest, neck, and head damage multipliers as the R700 and the 50 cal, which means you can one-shot somebody in the chest even if you aren't using stopping power. If you are using stopping power on the Dragunov, you can get a one-shot kill against the Juggernaut user if you shoot them in the chest, but that is the only situation where stopping power is useful on the Dragunov. It's actually highly recommended for you not to use stopping power on the Dragunov because it has no damage multipliers aside from the head, the neck, and the chest. You see, the other snipers like the M40, the R700, and the 50 cal, they all have damage multipliers for the stomach, which means if you're using stopping power, you can shoot them in the stomach and still get a one-hit kill. You don't have that on the Dragunov, so the only situation where stopping power is even remotely useful on this thing is if you're trying to kill Juggernaut users, and how often are you facing an entire party of Juggernaut users while trying to use your Dragunov, right? So basically, pick something different, pick sleight of hand, UAV jammer, something else, because the semi-automatic nature of this weapon means you can very quickly get that second shot off and try to take somebody out as compared to trying to rely on a one-hit kill. That's the beauty of the Dragunov. It's definitely one of the more clunky snipers to use in the game, but you don't need to have stopping power on for it to be useful. So if you're somebody that likes scout sniping, like sitting in the back of the map, picking people off across the map, counter-sniping other snipers, the Dragunov is one of the best weapons in the game to do just that. The next and final sniper rifle that we'll be covering here in this video is going to be the M21, which is basically just a scoped M14 assault rifle, but still, it's a very powerful sniper rifle, believe it or not. You can fire this thing really quickly, and it also has some pretty good damage if you decide to use stopping power. So, if you use stopping power on the M21, you can actually one-shot people in the upper chest, assuming, of course, they don't have Juggernaut. But here's the thing, you can fire this thing so ridiculously quickly that stopping power isn't 100% necessary on it. You could actually use this thing almost as if it were a marksman rifle and run something along the lines of sleight of hand, and then you combine that with something like bandolier, and suddenly you have this marksman rifle that you can just spam downrange that has very minimal recoil, that is very easy to get follow-up shots on, and it's a powerful rifle pretty much. Like, it can be a sniper, don't get me wrong. If you use stopping power on this thing, you can one-shot non-jug users to the upper chest, neck, and head, which makes it like every other sniper rifle in the game. But if you don't have stopping power on, it's very, very easy to get that second shot off and just use this thing as if it were a marksman rifle. This is pretty much the go-to sniper rifle if people are playing hardcore because of the incredibly high fire rate, which is actually tied, believe it or not, with the Barrett 50 cal and the Dragunov, but it's really high fire rate and it's low recoil. It's so easy to use in hardcore. Overall, it's actually just a pretty good sniper slash marksman rifle. So going full circle here, guys, to the question I asked you at the very beginning of the video, which sniper rifle here in Modern Warfare Remastered is the best? I'm gonna have to give it to the Barrett 50 cal for a couple of reasons. It can one-shot Juggernaut users, whereas the M40A3 cannot, even with its bugged-out ACOG. It has the best wall penetration in the game. It is semi-automatic, it has a giant magazine size, it's just a really good sniper rifle, and looking at some of the other sniper rifles that you would use, I can't picture a scenario that the M40A3 is better than the Barrett 50 cal. I can't picture a scenario where the R700 can outperform the Barrett 50 cal. Now, there are some situations like with the Dragunov or the M21 where maybe they can get an easier follow-up shot, but for the most part, you don't need follow-up shots. You're using a Barrett 50 cal. It just seems to be the best sniper rifle in the game for playing the standard playlist. If you guys are playing hardcore, M21 all day and night, guys, for sure. It's by far the best one for hardcore. But in your standard playlist where the majority of COD fans play, it's tough to beat out the Barrett 50 cal. But like I said, it does to some extent come down to personal preference, because even intellectually, I can look at this and say, okay, the Barrett is better than the M40A3. I still choose to use the M48-3 because one, I have a lot of memories with this weapon, but two, it feels really good. Maybe it's because I put so much playtime in with the M48-3, but there is something about this weapon that I just like. The scope in animation, the reload speed, the handling characteristics of the gun. I just prefer that over the Barrett 50 cal. Now, maybe if I spent more time with the 50 cal, I would have a different opinion, but for right now, I still think the M40 is my favorite sniper, even if it isn't the best one in the game. It all comes down to personal preference. All sniper rifles in this game are actually viable, some more than others, and it's up to you to decide which sniper rifle you like using the most. Ladies and gentlemen, I hope you guys all enjoyed this video. I hope you guys all found it helpful and informative. Be sure to subscribe to my YouTube channel for more videos like this, and I hope you guys all have a wonderful day.